Interesting question, though. It came up just this morning. Yes, ma'am.
What is the cap if you sell?
Yes, the new buyer, it's the second year that you own the property that the cap applies. So the first year that someone buys your house, they may well inherit your homestead exemption, and it has a cap on it. But, ooh, rude surprise, the next year, when it's the first year of their homestead exemption, there is no cap. They're up to full market value. That's the year for the district to catch up. And many times people will not budget for that increase. They will say, well, the taxes were $3,000 last year or $3,500. Well, what they fail to consider is that, one, it's based on a cap way low, below the market value, and two, the cap's going to go away, so that next year they get their tax bill and it's $4,500. That happens a lot. Happens more in the over 65. The over 65 exemption, yes, sir. Before I go on.
So that after it goes up, it'll still be capped, though, right? The following year, it's 10%.
Correct. So if the house was capped at $250, its market value was $350. You bought it at $350. The next year, it's going to be taxable at $350, and then the cap applies. So the next year, the maximum it could go to is $385, and we hope very, very much that it does, because that means your market value went up beyond what you paid for it, which is a good thing, which Ken specializes in. The over 65 exemption is the single best tax management tool in the state of Texas. It can be transported around. It can be moved. It is just a wonderful tax management tool. Did you know if you have a rent house and you move your parents who are over 65, indigent, they move into the house. Sorry, that was a joke. They move into the house, your rent property. You can deed them a life estate in that house. That is a right to occupy the house. You're not deeding them the house, just the right to occupy it for the rest of their natural lives. You can put terminations in it. You can do all sorts of things. But by giving them a life estate, that house now qualifies for an over 65 exemption and a tax freeze for the school and big exemptions. And when they move on to an assisted living facility or a licensed facility in the state of Texas, the exemption remains. So long as your parents are alive, that house will always have frozen taxes. You can rent it out. It is the single greatest tax management tool in the state of Texas. Yes, sir.
They have to move it? Do they have to live in the house? Or?
Oh, yeah. There are some rules. As much as I'd like to bend them, there are some rules. Occupancy being one of them, yes. In general now, the general homestead exemption, there's only 3 requirements. 1, you own it January 1st. 2, you occupy it on January 1st as your primary residence. And 3, you claim no other exemption, no other homestead exemption in the state of Texas. Mr. A.J. Foyt has found that out, in that he had filed for a homestead exemption in Houston and in Austin and was granted it. And they've now found 2 homestead exemptions, and no matter how fast he drives, he can't get away from it. That's for the general homestead exemption. The over 65, even better. The over 65 exemption goes into effect the day you buy the property and make it your homestead. So you can buy it on December 30th and get the over 65 exemption for the entire year. That's a wonderful thing. So, in fact, there's another little known technique to freeze your taxes at 0, but I won't bother you all with that. That involves the over 65 purchase of a property that is very cheap, and freezing your taxes there.
Jeff, talk about how somebody I know that moves from one house, their homestead exemption, to another in different counties every 2 years.
Well, and actually, that somebody would be me. I do maintain 2 residences. I'm blessed in that respect. I have one over in Lee County, outside of Giddings, Texas, and I do fully occupy both houses all the time. I don't know which one I'm at half the time. Well, I do, because I'd rather be at that one. But every couple of years, I will move my homestead exemption back and forth between them. One, one, because I'm not in a rapidly appreciating neighborhood, so I don't need the 10% cap. And two, because then I can, under the federal tax guidelines of selling your homestead, it's 2 out of the last 5 years. It has to be your primary residence, and then you're exempt from like $500,000 in appreciation on the sale of that house. And should I ever have to sell either house, I'd love to be able to take that exemption on either one I sell. So every couple of years, I'm still qualified on the one out at Fedor, even though I've been here in Austin for 2 years. So next year I'll move it back out to Fedor, and that way either property I can sell and take advantage of the federal tax guidelines for escaping the capital gains tax. That's really a federal tax issue. I am not a CPA. I didn't tell you anything about myself. I graduated from Cal Poly in 1980 in San Luis Obispo, California. Wonderful place. Immediately fled to Austin, Texas, and have been here ever since. I went to work for the Williamson Appraisal District in 1981, was employee number 13, turned out to be a great number. I worked there for 5 years, left the appraisal district, actually was pronounced unfit for public service, and fired in 1986. And started Texas Pro Tax in 1987, and started Tax Remedy in 1991. So I've done nothing else in my entire professional career than moan about property taxes. So that's how exciting a guy I am. But I know them backwards and forwards. I'm happy to help any of you. If you'll email me, it may be a slow response. I apologize. It won't be so slow now. But at question@taxremedy.com, myself or Shannon Ramirez, my trusted advisor herself, will answer your questions.